Oh, hey, in this video, thought I'd try to go through some of Garcia's parts in the song Let It Grow. I've got a video I recently posted going through Weir's parts. That video took me almost 20 minutes to get through all the different sections of the songs and all the different variants. So I'm going to try to get through some of the stuff that Garcia does without basically repeating all the stuff I did in the Weir video. Some of the soloing that Garcia does in this song, there's just no other word, but I think ferocious is the way to capture what he's doing. It really does force you to stay on your toes. There's lots of different changes, lots of different modes being used. I'm going to try to go through some of the highlights. Of course, it was a song that was played over decades, lots of different variations and versions, different structure as you move from the 70s into the 80s and 90s. I'm going to try to pick up some of the common themes as we go through all the different versions. Alright, so let's get started and see what we can find. Now, a really important part is going to be a two-chord transition that Weir plays and what Garcia does over it. The song starts with Bobby doing an A minor 7th, played up at the 5th and the 7th fret. In the 70s versions, he would just do that for a couple measures and then the song would begin. That chord, and then the subsequent chord that he plays, which is a B diminished, is going to be what happens in the introduction in the 80s and 90s, back and forth between those two chords. It's also going to be the chords that are used in the first two lines of each verse, and it's also going to be the chord progression that is what I'm going to call part 2 of the jam. So Weir's moving from an A minor 7th to a B diminished. Now the B diminished, as he plays it, as Weir plays it, it's going to have the B here, D, and F, sometimes with an open E. While he's doing that, think of Garcia as starting with an A minor over the A minor 7th chord. Play it up at the 12th fret, because that'll give you some easy transition from what he does when Weir moves to the B diminished. So, over there, A minor 7th, just a basic A minor scale, nothing but naturals. Now when Weir moves to the B diminished, Garcia's going to use, he's got several different options here. Think about Weir as if he were playing a full B diminished 7th, which would have the B, the D, the F, and also the G sharp. One of the things that Garcia does is he essentially just plays an arpeggio over that chord, the B diminished 7th. So we would have our D, or sometimes they'll start with the F. So just picking out those notes. F, D, B, G sharp, and D. Another way to capture those notes is using the A harmonic minor scale. Now the A harmonic minor scale, it's a variant of the minor scale. The only difference between it and the A minor scale that we were doing before with all naturals is that instead of the G, we're going to have a G sharp. So if you think about starting it on the A and then just descending, now that ends on the E, but Garcia can move back and forth between the A minor and this A harmonic minor, where again, the difference is just going to be whether you play the G or the G sharp. Or you can do the arpeggio of the B diminished 7th. Now another thing that he does over that is he plays on what's a quirky feature of the diminished 7th chords, which essentially of all the different ways you can fret the diminished 7th chord, when you fret it in one place, move it up 3 frets, and you can have the same chord. So start with this way of fretting the B diminished 7th. Up here with our B and our G sharp as if we were playing an E7th, then get the F in there, and then get your pinky in there with the D. So think about that as the first, we'll call that the first fret, because the first finger at the first fret. That's another variant that Garcia will do over that B diminished that Bobby's playing. All right, now if you think about where we are in the verses, so we're going through that A minor 7th to the B diminished over the first 2 lines. So let me just kind of sketch out Garcia as if he was just playing chords, because I can't, unlike Jay Darks, I can't sing, play chords, and solo all at the same time. Morning comes, she follows the path, the river shore. Lively song, the song is the latch on the morning's door. And that's just one way of doing it, as I mentioned, among several, what to do with that, over that B diminished. Now the next part of the song, we got see the sun sparkle in the reeds. So A minor, slide up to C, silver beads, pass into the C, B minor, D. I think what Garcia is doing over the A minor and the C is just playing around with the A minor scale. Until we get to the B minor, D, where often he just moves from a B note to an A. While he's doing that, while Weir's doing that, Garcia's doing. Now, Weir's got, she comes from a town, D, where they call her the woodcutter's daughter, A7th. She's brown as the bank, where she kneels down to gather her water, back to the D. She bears it away with the love that the river has. B minor. Now, let's just go over when Weir's doing the D and the A7th, Garcia is going to be playing around with the A mixolydian. Now, A mixolydian has the same notes as the D major. So we had ways of playing around with that D or A mixolydian. After the verses, just as a side note, after Weir goes through the verses 2 times, the 3rd time around, after the chorus, Weir plays the full round of the verse chords, and Garcia solos over it. In the 80s and 90s, when he was MIDI happy, he would break out the horn sound. Here he would be just following what we did before. When he gets to that section of the D and the A7th, using the A mixolydian, he'd break out the horns, and we would get sometimes things like all right, so now we're up to she bears it away with the love the river has. B minor. Let it flow, greatly flow, wide and clear, up to the C sus2, and then Weir slides it up to an E sus2. At this point, Garcia is fooling around on the A minor again, given that we've got that let it flow. When Weir moves up to the E sus2, Garcia often will do this little lick that will start with, say, the C sharp to the D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. Now those notes are the notes of the D major scale. Now when it comes to the chorus, what the chords are played is actually, as I say in the Weir video, it's quite hard to tell. I think essentially Garcia is just playing along mostly with the chords, especially in the first part of each. So the way I got it is, what shall we say, shall we call it by a name? Well, we count the angels, dance on a pin. Morning bright is the sky from which it came. So while Weir is doing D, name is on the earth, takes it, A, Garcia is again moving on that A mixolydian. Name is on the earth, takes it. Do not speak but stand inside the rain. Listen to the thunder shout. Now after we go through the chorus, we go through the first lead break. That's just going to be Weir going through the full verse chords with Garcia doing the stuff that we had talked about, often at a much faster clip. Then we get a partial third verse, which is the so it goes, we make what we made since the world began. So Weir's doing again the A minor 7th to the B diminished, nothing more, love of the women, work of men. Seasons round, reaches up and small, up and down. E minor D, or Garcia again with that B to the A, while Weir's doing the B minor to the D, Garcia's doing the B to the A, and then we head into the jam. The jam in the 80s and 90s has 3 parts. The first part is, as I hear it, F, E minor, D, with Bobby hanging on the D for quite a while. The second part is going to be a return to the A minor 7th, and then the B diminished, with Garcia doing the stuff that we've talked about over those 2 chords. And then the third part is going to be an E minor, F sharp minor, G, E minor, F sharp minor, G, F sharp minor, E minor, F sharp minor, G, E minor. All right, so the 3 parts. Second part. All right, so what's Garcia doing over there? Those 3 parts. For the F, E minor, D, I think what he's doing is he's moving on the E minor scale. All right, so the E minor scale is going to have him starting often down on the neck. hear he really picks up the pace far more than I can do. What's notable is that it's an E minor, but he spends a bunch of time on that F sharp. That F sharp gets a lot of play, which is not surprising given that Weir himself is going to be hanging on the D chord for a good bit of that part of the jam, and the F sharp is the 3 of the D. So while Weir's hanging on the D, Garcia is doing, as I said, E minor, but returning to that F sharp note often. And then eventually he's going to slide it up higher, as we'd expect. He's not going to stay in one place. Alright, so working on that F sharp throughout the E minor that he's doing. Then we get to the A minor 7th and the B diminished. There he's going to be doing some of the same stuff we were talking about before. A minor up to the A harmonic. Now, that A harmonic minor that we were talking about, G sharp to the A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp to the A. If you had actually started that scale on the E, that's actually a mode of the A harmonic minor, and when you started on the E, that's what's known as the E Phrygian dominant, and that's exactly what Garcia plays in the Spanish Jam. So just think about what Bobby's doing. So he's on top of and familiar with and makes use of that A harmonic minor. And as I said, if you had started that same scale just on the E, you'd have what's known as the E Phrygian dominant, or what sometimes people call the A Spanish Gypsy scale. Now, when Weir in the 80s and 90s moves to the third part of the jam, which isn't in the 70s version, I think, for most of it, that E minor, F sharp minor, G, Garcia himself shifts now to an E Dorian. Now, the E Dorian actually does have the same notes in it as the D major, but the emphasis is going to be on the E. So while Weir is doing, Garcia is going to start on the low notes. So E, F sharp, G, E, F sharp, G, A, E, F sharp, G, A, B. he's not going to do that same lick through the whole thing. He's going to use the E Dorian. Again, faster than I can do, and full of variations with various things that Garcia does in his soloing. Sorry. So all the tricks in his bag that give him his distinctive sound. Alright, so he's got those three different parts of the jam with the movement again from these different modes that he's using. Now finally the last part to cover is what's known as the step down. Now the step down comes off of, in the 80s and 90s, it comes off of that E minor, F sharp minor, G that Weir's doing, which we've just said Garcia is doing with an E Dorian. Now, he's going to continue with that, so you're going to stay in, essentially, the E Dorian, or, if you want to think about it, it's the same notes as the D major scale. So in that step down, he does it in various places. Sometimes he does it just at the 12th fret. But not always. Sometimes he's fooling around still in the E Dorian, but he's playing it up higher and not all the same notes. Now Weir himself, as I cover in the other video, is doing something like so Garcia's got freedom to be doing different stuff because Weir's carving out essentially the framework of that. So he's got some freedom to be doing different stuff as he makes use of. Again, as I hear it in the E Dorian, Weir himself, the way he ends the first time around, and it's also the way that the song ends, he'll end on that C sus2 up to the E sus2. And Garcia tends to fade out while Weir is up at the E sus2. Alright, so lots of different pieces there. I hope some of that made sense and give you some stuff to work with. Lots of stuff going on, lots of different versions, and some intense soloing, as I said, but I hope that can give you the framework at least from which to begin approaching this, this great song. Alright, take it easy.